Under the low amber glow of luminescence, where Manhattan's elite spoke in quiet arrogance, Emma Martinez steadied a tray that suddenly felt too heavy. She sensed trouble before she saw it, before billionaire Alexander Pierce lifted his head from table 7 and pinned her with a look sharp enough to silence the room. "Miss Martinez," he said, his voice smooth but dangerous. "Step closer." The staff exchanged alarmed glances. He never addressed new hires. Never addressed anyone unless something was about to break. Emma approached, her heartbeat thudding against the noise of crystal and cutlery. Then she saw it, a thick money clip, left exposed beside his untouched plate, as if placed there on purpose. Alexander tapped the table once. "Tell me," he murmured, his eyes unreadable, "what would you do if you found this while I wasn't looking?" In that suspended second, Emma felt the ground shift. This wasn't a question. It was the beginning of something she couldn't walk away from. Stay with the story. Like the video and subscribe to Canada's Heartfelt Tales so you don't miss what happens next. The moment Emma's fingers hovered above the money clip, the restaurant's soundscape shifted. Forks paused mid-air, conversations thinned into uneasy murmurs, and the glow from the chandeliers seemed to sharpen into an accusing spotlight. She didn't breathe at first, not with Alexander watching her, as though her next movement carried the weight of an entire verdict. She wished she could step backward, break free from that moment, but his stare held her in place, forcing her to confront whatever this test was supposed to prove. "I asked you a question," Alexander said, his tone calm but edged with steel. "What would you do?" Emma swallowed, feeling her voice wobble before it found its footing. "I'd protect it," she answered quietly. "Because leaving it out like this makes you a target. Anyone could take it. Anyone could think you don't care." Alexander didn't blink. His jaw tensed, and for a heartbeat she saw something flicker there. Surprise, maybe, or irritation at being challenged. Before he could speak again, a server across the room knocked over a tray. The crash jolted everyone, even Alexander, who straightened, dismissing Emma with a curt nod. But the damage was already done. His eyes had marked her, memorized her, and the staff sensed it like a shift in weather they couldn't control. Back in the prep station, Maria pulled Emma aside. "Why would you speak to him like that? He's not a man who tolerates opinions unless they're his." "I wasn't being rude," Emma said, but her voice sounded tired even to her own ears. "I was being honest." "Honesty's a luxury in this place," Maria whispered. "And people like us rarely get to afford it." But Emma didn't regret her words. Not yet. The night spiraled faster than she could steady herself, and when Alexander confronted her publicly, accusing eyes, clipped tone, demanding explanations she wasn't ready to defend, she realized this wasn't an ordinary misstep. It became clear when he fired her in front of the entire room, stripping her of dignity as casually as removing a napkin from his lap. By the time she stepped outside into the November chill, she felt hollow. Then he followed her. Not with rage. Not with triumph. But with something that complicated everything. He offered her a thick envelope, more money than she had seen in months, and for the first time his voice softened. That should have been the end. The type of moment where two people walk away and never speak again. But fate had other plans, disguised as a phone call from his HR department summoning her to his tower of glass and steel. She arrived expecting humiliation. Instead, she was offered a job that could rewrite her whole life. A fresh start, a role with purpose, a chance to shape something meaningful. Working beside him was sudden, intense, consuming. Days blurred into early morning meetings, building plans, menus, budgets, and conversations that dug deeper than either of them intended. They discovered common ground layered with vulnerability neither had shown before. But behind Alexander's thawing demeanor stood someone who despised what Emma represented. Victoria Chen, a board member who saw Emma's presence as a threat to power rather than an opportunity for growth. Victoria watched everything. How Alexander looked at Emma, how he insisted on her ideas, how he trusted her instinct. And jealousy, disguised as professionalism, hardened into hostility. When their relationship finally crossed the line from workplace tension into something undeniably real, it wasn't a secret for long. Victoria confronted them in Alexander's office with the cold satisfaction of someone who had planned the ambush perfectly. "This is a conflict of interest," she declared. "And one of you must be removed from the project." The pause that followed cut deeper than anything Emma expected. Alexander hesitated. She saw it in his posture, in the way his shoulders stiffened, in the way he avoided her eyes, as though the truth he feared was standing inches away. When he finally spoke, his voice faltered between duty and desire, torn by a lifetime of choosing work over everything else. Emma waited for him to defend them. He didn't. And that silence became the loudest betrayal of her life. She left his office with her pride barely intact and her heart fraying at the edges, walking through Manhattan like someone whose future had been erased in one conversation. Sophie, her roommate, listened and held her without judgment, urging her not to give up yet. But Emma wasn't sure she had any strength left to fight for a man who didn't fight for her. Then Friday arrived. And with it, an anonymous message. "Luminescence. 7 p.m. Please." She almost didn't go. But when she stepped inside, the restaurant was dark except for a single table. Table 7, the same one where everything had begun. And Alexander was waiting beside it, looking more human than she had ever seen him. He didn't start with apologies. He started with the truth. He had confronted the board. He had fought Victoria. He had refused to abandon Emma. And when they threatened his position, he made a decision that stunned even her. He resigned from the new project so that she could lead it. The envelope on the table held proof. His signature, his sacrifice. "Your dream matters more," he told her, voice unsteady. "You matter more." She wanted to be angry. She wanted to push him away. But something raw in his expression anchored her. Fear mixed with courage, vulnerability tangled with hope. Then the doors of Luminescence burst open. Victoria Chan stormed in, flanked by 2 board advisors, fury tightening every step. "You went behind the board's back," she spat. "You think you can hand a multimillion-dollar project to an inexperienced girl because you're infatuated?" Emma stood calm but firm. "My work speaks for itself. And you know it." Victoria scoffed. "You're nothing but a convenient distraction." But before Alexander could react, a voice rose from the back of the restaurant. "Maria." She stepped forward, eyes blazing. "She's the reason your staff stopped quitting. The reason morale went up. The reason customers finally felt welcome. Maybe you should spend less time tearing women down and more time noticing what actually improves your business." The board advisors exchanged uneasy glances. Victoria's glare trembled at the edges. And then the final blow arrived. The head of HR entered, holding printed statements from employees, servers, hosts, cooks, all describing Victoria's history of intimidation, mismanagement, and retaliation. It turned out she had built her empire on fear. And now it was collapsing. "You're suspended pending investigation," HR announced. Victoria froze, disbelief cracking across her face. "You can't do this." But they already had. Emma watched the woman who had nearly destroyed her future be escorted out. Her power stripped away in the same room where she once ruled through silence. And satisfaction bloomed through Emma's chest. Not petty but rightful, earned, long overdue. When the doors closed behind Victoria, Alexander stepped closer. "Emma," he whispered, "I choose you. Not just tonight. Not just when it's easy. Every day." Emma didn't answer with words at first. She stepped into him, letting the gravity between them pull tight, real, unshakable. Then she spoke softly. "Then don't ever hesitate again." They stood together in the glow of the lone chandelier, surrounded by the ghosts of their past mistakes and the promise of something better. With Victoria gone, the project reborn, and their path finally aligned, Emma felt the first true breath of relief since arriving in New York. But the story was far from over. Because just as Emma reached for Alexander's hand, the restaurant door creaked open again, and the person standing there would change everything. And that is where the next chapter begins. When the lights of Luminescence dimmed that night, Emma finally understood how far she had traveled from the girl who once stood trembling beside a table she feared would end her future. She had walked through doubt, pride, and heartbreak, yet somehow found her voice in the very place that had tried to quiet it. And now, watching the staff greet her with the warmth of people who believed in her, she felt something shift inside, a steadying certainty that her worth had never depended on permission from anyone. Alexander joined her at the doorway, not with the sharp confidence he once wore like armor, but with a humility she had helped uncover. For the first time, she saw the man he was becoming rather than the one he had been. Their paths, once tangled in misunderstanding, now stood side by side, equal, deliberate, and chosen. As they stepped outside, snow began to fall, soft and quiet, settling over the street like a promise. Emma let the cold brush her skin, knowing it marked more than the end of a long night. It marked the beginning of a future built on truth, resilience, and the courage to stand up even when the whole room is watching. If this story moved you, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to Canada's Heartfelt Tales so more stories like this can come to life.